You all join me now in the unison prayer. You hardly imagined standing here, everything you ever loved suddenly returning to you, looking you in the eye and calling your name. And now you do not know how to abide in this ache in the center of your chest where a door closes and swings open at the same time, turning on the hinge of your aching and hopeful heart. This is not a banishment from the garden. This is an invitation, a choice, a threshold, a gate. This is our life, calling to us from a place we could never have dreamed, but now that we have glimpsed its edge, we cannot imagine choosing any other way. Let this blessing gather itself around us. Let it give us what we will need for this journey together. Today's reading is from Psalm 62, verses 5 to 12. For God, you alone, my soul waits in silence. My hope comes from God. God alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. On God rests my deliverance and my honor. My mighty rock, my refuge, is in God. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. Mortals are a mere breath, the powerful but an illusion. When placed on the scales, they rise, all of them, lighter than air. Put no trust in extortion, no empty hopes in robbery. If wealth increases, do not set your heart on it. One thing God has said. Two things I have heard. Power belongs to God, and so too, Lord, does kindness. You reward each of us according to our deeds.
Did that passage sound familiar to anybody? It was from last week. But I asked Tom, did you focus on this? And he said, nope, it's yours. So here we are. Because the other scriptures from today just didn't do it. So what a privilege it is to be back here in this setting of leading worship. I've been here a number of times since leaving in 2006 for memorial services and the installation of the set design for Marcia McPhee's Worship Design Studio, which you can still see on her website, worshipdesignstudio.com. And I was even invited to a Christmas party in 2009. Each time I have felt the love and appreciation. You are a kind and loving congregation. And while I know there is a bond between us, I also know that that bond could not endure if it weren't for the support and affirmation of your great pastor. I celebrate the Reverend Lori Jean Manning, my dear friend and ally. And I am eternally grateful for her gentle pastoral care while I was getting back on my feet for a few years after leaving Skyline. So grateful for this invitation to come spend the morning with you all during her restoration and healing. So will you join me in a centering and opening prayer? With deep, sustaining breaths, we breathe in this gift of air and life. Holy One, we come before you to be touched in our hearts, rearranged in our heads, and repaired in our bodies. Send your radical love into this place, in the breath of wind that we hear outside the windows, so that we can no longer argue with you, but have the courage to surrender to your universal principle of love. Continue breathing, my fellow travelers, letting go of that which does not serve you, and welcome that which serves your highest good. It is in service to the healing of the nations. As we continue the blessings of the season of Epiphany, may we welcome your light of revelation, Holy One. Amen. So is it a known fact that preachers choose their theme based on what they themselves need to explore and figure out? Or do we all come across looking like we know something and we have the authority to impart it, this secret knowledge? Perhaps it's a little of both. Well, my truth here this morning is that this conversation with you is rooted in a longing to work through the nuances and distinctions of this nebulous action we take in our relationship with God, Christ, and our church to greater or lesser degrees. That is faith. Faith. So let's explore the nature of this radical trust. We may find moments of insight in this season of aha. So faith is confidence or trust in a person or thing. Trust. It's a belief not based on proof. It's a belief in God or in the doctrines or the teaching of religion. It's an obligation of loyalty or fidelity to a person, promise, or engagement. The trust in God in Christianity is in God's promise made through Christ and the Bible by which humans are justified or saved. So, people of faith, perhaps we've been lured into Christianity by the compelling idea of divine generosity. We hear that God's grace is freely given, and we do not even need to earn it. God's love for us is so unconditional that God can find us in the gutter and see us as beautiful. That Christ has taken the fall for our iniquities, so we are clean and have a get-out-of-jail-free card just because we said yes to Jesus. Well, maybe it's me, but I really struggle with that. I mean, can humans really be trusted with such profound generosity? Won't our egos abuse this divine gift? Won't we sully and crush these pearls that have been laid before us? We are the best of God's creation and the worst. I mean, look at Catholic priests who take advantage of young boys. Perhaps they wrestle with the harm they do by believing that they will be welcomed into the gates of heaven with no questions asked. That even their abuse is forgivable? Well, so where does that leave those who are harmed? Where do they fit into God's equation? Sure, God loves them true, but if their lives and mental health have been crushed and are so harmed that their lives are unlivable, that just doesn't add up for me. God seems to be inviting a train wreck by giving the ultimate gift of unconditional love to those who ultimately tear down whole lives and whole cities with them. Take Vladimir Putin. He's known to be very Catholic, and he clearly believes he is blessed and chosen to return Russia to her former grand stature. And then, what about my stepfather, who experimented on animals? Yes, that was harm for very, very little good. Certainly the Old Testament and Hebrew culture and chief priests also did not believe we could be trusted. With such epic retribution and retaliation woven deeply into the Hebrew Bible, they parade around a God who crushes and drowns and smites their enemies. In Exodus, the famous quote, that pain-filled decree, just after that good land flowing with milk and honey, God smites the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Okay, so what do we do with this transactional God, punishing and vengeful? Well, so here's the spectrum, the continuum. Let's talk about the TAO for a minute. It is the way, which we read about in the meditation. Did you read the meditation? Nobody read it to us. Under heaven, all can see beauty as beauty, only because there is that which is ugly or offensive. All can know good as good only because there is evil or that which is corrupt. Therefore, having and not having arise together. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short contrast each other. High and low rest upon each other. Front and back follow each other. This outlines that dynamic polar opposite. Not one or the other is better than the other. They are equal and they are different. They need each other to define themselves, like a valley and a mountain. What keeps them together? What keeps beauty and corruption locked together? What keeps heaven and earth in their eternal dance? There is a universal and sacred balance between opposing forces. Now in Christianity, that's called duality. But they're not balanced and they're not equal. In Christianity, we've turned the TAO on its head or on its side, and we say, oh, well, the valley is bad and the mountain is good. And we say, black is bad and white is good, color-wise, not race-wise. And we say, women are lowly and men are great. You know, this power over is used as an oppressive tool. But in the TAO, the grace and the aspect of life hold things together. They need each other. They are not in judgment of each other, and they are in balance. So where does that leave us with faith? Here's the paradox. Why would God truly and absolutely free us from needing to be accountable for our thoughts and actions forever and ever? If God, through the human endeavor of being Jesus, understands what it means to be human, which is what they say, God came into a human body and was Jesus, and God knew us. Then if God was human, God truly knows that we need saving. But God knows that if we don't have a reason to work towards our own salvation, then probably 80% of us won't. This unmerited saving grace, then, is an act of radical trust on the part of God. If humans act magnanimously, we too often do so to bring about a particular end. Again, transactional. Clearly, God is beyond these hidden agendas. So this divine plan was not initiated in order that we would be shamed or coerced into becoming better people. It was given because the divine is always ready to act first. Stinginess is sure to beget stinginess, yet love from this divine being, trust and graciousness establish a foundation for our transformation. God prepares us for our liberation from that arduous eye for an eye style punitive theology. Salvation does not need to be earned. It is not a transactional pardon for doing great works. It is freely given without expectation of worthiness. However, even if we are saved, it does not mean we become perfect people. A saved person may still be a wretch and do global harm. And perhaps they die and they still receive the eternal grace. I just can't answer that part. But what I can answer is the key that those who choose to live fully into the gift that God gives us, into our God-given potential, will have a life beyond our wildest dreams. How pleased God must be when humans choose that which is freely given. The wholeness and beauty which arise out of the mire and tribulation and paradoxes of life when we live fully into God's given gifts, taking risks to use those gifts even when it's scary and stressful, even when they are opposed by the world, taking the delicate beauty instilled within our psyches and our hearts and our souls, and expressing that throughout our life. Giving away this bounty which we have received of talent, of mirth, of insight, which is the core of your very selves. Now that is truly a gift from God. I invite you to close your eyes for a minute. Take a few deep breaths. You're invited to think about if you were God looking at you, if you were outside your life and looking at yourself, think about 5 qualities that you have that were instilled by God to you, that you realize God gave you to share with the world. Don't worry about if you're living them or not. Just share these gifts. Just think about 5 things. Would anybody like to share 1 or 2 of their things? How about you, Nancy? Great. Anything else that God gave you that? Compassion. Beautiful. The ability to forgive. That's great. That's beautiful. That's great. How about you, Tom?
Hello.
Woo!
Introspection and openness.
Anybody else? Barbara?
Love of animals.
Love of animals. Beautiful. God gave us that.
Love of nature. Try again.
Love of nature, and I aim for unconditional love of other people.
You don't all have to go, but if you'd like to go, you are welcome to.
Why me?
You don't have to go.
Well, mine main one is music. It's been my whole life, and I think God gave it to me, at least to a certain degree. He left it to me to to do with it.
God does do that.
Yeah.
Leaves us to manage this or express this in the best way that we can. Anybody else? Curiosity and wonder. I love that. That will keep you young. That's beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to give this back to you.
Oh, thanks.
So mine are empathy, love of family and teams working together. I'm passionate about that. Deep appreciation for beauty and seeing the power of brainstorming, that collaborative nature just lights me up. And like Barbara, love of animals and connection to the earth. So I would wager that God would dance and all the angels would sing your glory if you take the profound blessings that God has imprinted in your cells that you have received and that you focus on finding ways to express these 5 qualities that you've been gifted. 3 qualities, 2 qualities. Finding new and deeper ways to live into these gifts and share them with this broken world, so in need of your radiant beauty. This is the way of the complex Tao of faith, the faith that folds both ends of this faith spectrum into a holy circle of oneness, self and divine integration. Imagine using your mind-blowing powers, the blessings that you've been imbued with, to truly make this world a better place. Now, this isn't a call necessarily, Tom. Yeah, exactly. It's not a call. It's from another angle. It's not like, oh, I gotta go do that. These are things that are just part of you and you easily express them, but sometimes we put that light, that bushel basket over our light, don't we? And you know what? These things that you thought of will bring you great joy. They will give you joy. It's like when I come in and do fabric and stuff. I can't help it. It just makes me happy. And it doesn't even feel like I was ever told to do it. I just have to. And these are things that you each have these things. You each have the things that you know God has imprinted in your soul, and when you live them out, we have a better world. And you and God will both be joyful. So from this peak, let's hear Psalm 62 again for the first time. My soul waits with peace. My hope comes from God. On God rests my deliverance and my honor. Trust in God at all times, people. Pour out your hearts, your delightful talent, your glory for God. God is a refuge for us. Selah. One thing God has said, and 2 things I have heard. Power belongs to God, and so too does kindness. God, you reward each of us according to our deeds. This psalm by David practically describes one who's living their divine qualities. God, you reward each of us according to our deeds. But here, deeds don't mean that you're fulfilling something God telling you to do. It's those 5 things, it's those 3 things, and you have many more. But let's focus on those things, because they make you come alive. So, yeah, these aren't the niggling things. These aren't those things that sort of rumble in your gut. Those are calls. I can't help you with that. But you can be joyful while you're deciding how to express your call. These are already in you. There's nothing you have to do except live into them more. So Mary Oliver says, whoever you are, no matter how lonely the world offers itself to your imagination, and calls you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, and announcing your place in the family of things. This puts you in your family. This puts you in your place. Little by little, as you leave, this is another Mary Oliver, little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into yourself and into the world, determined to do the only thing that you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. That is you. That is bringing alive you. So these gifts can flourish and grow These are our salvation. They will be magnified. This is the path of trust. Your life's expression of faith in the Creator that built you. Not only will they be your salvation, these will be the salvation of the world. Can you imagine how alive you will feel if you find the delight in fulfilling the radiant, life-giving gifts that God has woven into your heart? Can you imagine the world, what it would be like if everyone was living their delight, the things that God had put in them to make this world a better place? So here's the good news. I've experienced the salvation of Jesus. I'm sorry, I heard a voice. It was not when I was being perfect or even good. In fact, I was flailing about after I'd finished at Rhode Island School of Design. I had assumed my path would be clear and obvious after getting a Bachelor of Fine Arts. It was not. I was depressed. I was humiliated. I only learned how much I didn't know. That's not what I paid for. So one day, I was inviting the angels in to come help because I needed so much help. And they were visiting, and they were healing in their otherworldly nature. But one day I was particularly mortified by life and thinking of ending it. I walked into my bedroom, and there, centered over my bed, was a light that filled the room. The nature of it was distinctly different than the angelic presences. That gossamer cosmic radiance spoke. His words were clear and infused my whole being. You are loved. You are healed. And you are forgiven. Every part of me knew this was the Christ light. His presence subsumed me. The sensation was palpable. I felt psychologically, spiritually, and mentally different for 2 weeks afterwards. My mind could not argue with this blessing. And I said, now if that love is at the heart of Christianity, I can do that. I can't do this other stuff, all this apologetic stuff and man stuff, all these. The Bible, I believe, was written by men for men. I'll just get that on the table. But suddenly I could be Christian. What does it take to live fully into this privilege of that radical healing love? That is available for each of you. That is there. That is there, whether you hear it or not. But you have to be open. You have to be ready to surrender. That's not easy. Knowing each moment we have choices, we can choose ourselves, or we can choose, we can choose our true selves, or we can choose our desires and fear to listen to the voice of those who profit from our distraction from our true nature. Many industries profit when we are distracted from our truth and from our trust in our faith. When we're distracted from our connection to the earth. We have choices of kindness, compassion, or fear and distraction. We have choices of making a difference for others or focusing on ourselves. We have the choice of seeing and making beauty or harboring those places where we feel wronged and righteous. That the angels come to celebrate this beautiful blue marble. Never perish the connection with Christ, and our hearts is part of this quadrinity of Creator, Christ, and creation, and the power of creativity. It's not a trinity, it's a quadrinity. And the thing that got left out of the Trinity is the earth, is creation. So when you bring that back in, everything starts to make sense. The wholeness of the Tao that contains so many nuances, so many paradoxes, so much complexity, yet is a unified symbol, a way of wholeness. The wholeness becomes holy and goes further into God and wanting to atone, which means wanting to heal any splits that we have. Go to the path of wholeness. Here ends this sermon. May it bear fruit in your life while we fulfill the qualities God instills in our very essence. And we make God dance and the angels sing. Amen.